Good afternoon. My name is Kon Karapanagiotidis, and it is my incredible honor to be receiving such an honor and recognition today. I want to start by paying our respects to the fact that we gather on First Nations land, on Wurundjeri land. And every time I'm in a place of education, I think about how blessed we are to be part of the oldest living culture on earth, the most sophisticated living culture on earth. So much of our modern knowledge comes from First Nations people. And it's important when I'm talking today about social justice and human rights that we start by recognizing the importance of needing to stand with First Nations people and demanding that, in recognizing that we need treaty, in recognizing that we need genuine reconciliation, in recognizing that it's not okay that half of Indigenous men my age have passed, that it's not okay that we're not closing the gap, that it's not okay that we have leadership that won't embrace the Uluru Statement. So I just want to start by acknowledging that, and I want to start by acknowledging elders, and I want to start by acknowledging First Nations people who are graduating today, of which I know there are many. So can we start by giving them a huge round of applause? Chancellor and Vice-Chancellor, thank you for your generosity and for your kind words. For all the esteemed academics that are here, thank you for your wonderful leadership. To all the students that are graduating today, can we give them a huge round of applause? But I only stand here like so many of you. I'm going to ask you to indulge me for a moment, and I'm going to ask you to stand if you are Indigenous to this country, or you or your ancestors cross sea, sky, or land in search of a better life to come to this country. If that is you, can you please stand with me? Okay, now I want you to stay standing for a moment, and I want you to look around, and I want you to think about those ancestors, or yourself, if it was you that made that journey, or if you're Indigenous to this land. I want you to think about what it was like when you first arrived, if you came as a migrant or as a refugee. And sit down if it was easy. Sit down if you didn't face adversity. And when you think about your ancestors, I want you to think about who of you think of them as a burden, or as a problem, or as something that is weak in this country? Any of you? You can all sit down, thank you. What I wanted to start with is about, today should be about celebrating actually that which unites us, and celebrating the fact that the greatness of this country and the greatness of this place is our Indigenous and multicultural history and story. I'm being awarded today for, standing up for refugees, but the story of the refugees I work with are our collective story. That is, whether it is First Nations people that have survived 60,000 years, that have survived invasion in this country, or whether it is immigrants and refugees that have survived the adversity, the grief and loss of leaving home, whether it was my yaya and papu on my father's side as refugees, whether it was my mum and my father when they came to this country with nothing but a suitcase of hope, without a word of English, but with a dream of a better life, because that is the incredible sacrifice. And the people I most want to recognize today are the people actually on this side of the hall, which is you, and I'm sure most of you are only here and able to stand because you stand on their shoulders. I want you to join me in thanking the incredible families that have sacrificed. I imagine I was so overjoyed to see so many young women as I walked into the campus with hijabs graduating, so many young women and men of colour, so many Indigenous people, so many migrants and refugees. And I just filled me, so many women, because you change a nation by empowering women and girls, and it made me so happy. And I know there are some people here who might be stepping into the halls of a university for the first time because you sacrificed, like my mother and father, so that they could stand here on your shoulders. So can you join me in thanking them? It feels incredibly surreal being here because I was the first in my family to even go to high school. My father had to leave school at the age of 9, Leo, and my father dreamt of being the lawyer that I am now. I lost my father when I was 27, and I so wish he could be here with my mother to see the man that he has raised and to see what his sacrifices have made possible. My mother dreamt of being a maths teacher, Anastasia, and she had to leave school at the age of 12. My mum is here. Mum, can you stand up? Can you give my mum a round of applause? I think it's really important, and I always cry when I talk about my parents, and I think it's important to show vulnerability, and I think it's really important to be proud of where we come from, and proud of who we are, and proud of our stories, and our histories, and our struggles, and proud of what brings us together. And I'm so eternally grateful to my mother and father. At a time where I hear political rhetoric talking about people should only be citizens in this country if they can speak English, and often talked about by politicians who can't even pass grade 6 English, telling us, what makes this country great. And what makes this country great is not the level of English you come from or how far you have travelled to be here, but it is the shared love of this nation. It is the ethos that my parents taught me, that taught so many of you as well from your parents and grandparents, the importance of empathy, of compassion, of family, of community, of culture, of work ethic, of humility, of gratefulness. These are the values that transcend every nation and every culture. They're at the heart of it. What binds us is so much greater than what separates us. It always feels really strange getting awards for the work that I do because I am no hero. I've done nothing special. All I've done is face into something that is so morally reprehensible and depraved and sit there and go, I must act and I must do something. Over the last 28 years at the coalface and the last 18 years at the ASRC, when I started the centre, people said this is impossible. You cannot run a charity that will never take money from the federal government to stay independent. You cannot be outspoken and make change. You cannot rely on the goodwill of everyday Australians to make a difference. 18 years later, there are thousands of people alive because of this dream. There are 21,000 people we've helped since we started, whether it's finding their first job, gaining them asylum, providing nappies for a newborn baby, food on a table for a family going hungry, or a roof over their head. But my charity shouldn't exist. In the greatest city on earth, in the most livable country on earth, I shouldn't have to run a charity that provides shelter and food and refuge to refugees. Refugees are the most extraordinary people. They are people that have broken the earth in half. They are people that have crossed sea and land just to taste for a moment the freedom that we get to enjoy every moment here. They are the true heroes. They are the sorts of things that the Greek gods would bow at their feet and to go, that courage and resilience is something we need more of. In the last year, I've had to face into incredible challenges, such as how do we get sick children off Nauru? And listening to that baby cry, I think about the children as young as 2, 5, 7, 9 that I was helping last year, children that had stopped eating, walking, talking, children that were trying to take their own lives because we had left them there to give their childhood one of just despair and hopelessness. I think about the brave men on Manus Island that we're trying to bring to safety here right now. And I wonder to myself, why are we imprisoning for 6 years now people whose only crime is to believe that this country would fulfill its promise of freedom, of protection, of democracy in full flight, of compassion? In Greek culture, there is a word called philoxenia, which is love of the stranger, and every culture has a variation of that. It understands that in a moment, any one of us could be the stranger knocking on the door. And I ask you in the audience here today, if it was you and your family knocking on the door in the midnight hour, asking for refuge, asking for protection, asking for welcome, what would you want? We at times live in such privileged times that sometimes we don't need to think about the realities. But over 28 years, whether it is working with people seeking asylum or in my volunteer work at the moment in First Nations community, or when I first started out as a kid working with young people at risk and homeless men on the street, what I find is a country of have and have-nots. And what I find is a need of moral urgency for us to act. There are nearly 1 million Australians in this country living below the poverty line. There are tens of thousands of refugees in limbo. There is a woman being killed in this nation every week at the hands of male violence. There is a gap that is not closing when it comes to Indigenous life expectancy. These are the great moral challenges of our time, along with acting on climate change. And so for the graduates here, I ask you, what are you going to do with your privilege? You have this extraordinary opportunity to transform the world, whether it is in human rights, whether it is in STEM, whether it is in the arts. You have the opportunity to inspire. You have the opportunity to dream big. I've had my entire life, the youngest age, at 15, being told, drop out of school. You will never become anything, Kon. When I was in my 20s, I was told that idealism of yours is your problem, Kon. Just get rid of that passion and fire and you'll be okay, Kon. You will always have people that will tell you what you can and cannot be. I was never meant to be standing here. And what I encourage you to do is to listen to your voice. Own your power. Use your privilege. Lead with passion. Create. Change. Hold on to your values. That is the one thing no one can take from you. Your integrity and your values. They are what you own. They are your moral compass. And with that, you have the power to change. You have the power to see things that look like poison and make them into medicine. You have the power to bridge gaps and bring communities together. You have the power to inspire people. You know, we're about to have an election. And all I keep thinking about is the importance of where are values in this country. And the most important, most powerful thing we can do right now is lead with our values. Lead with radical empathy and love and compassion. See that everyone matters. That our desire for a free and prosperous society is only one if everyone sits at the table together. That we are not greater when we build tougher borders and higher walls. We are greater when we build longer tables to sit together. From every culture, from every faith, from every sexuality, from every background, from every nation. That is our beauty. This Indigenous and multicultural, beautiful patchwork of culture and community and story and survival and beauty and joy. So I thank the university for this extraordinary honour. I'm proud to see the university doing wonderful things, such as providing scholarships to refugees, partnering their law school with our human rights law program, encouraging young people to actually think about how they're going to change the world. That is the role of higher education. At a time where everything is being corporatized and we're being told to think of ourselves more than ever, we need places of learning, places of wisdom to lead from the front. And to say knowledge is useless unless it is for the common good. Knowledge is useless unless we are making things better for all of us. Knowledge is useless unless we are taking that and using it as a catalyst for change, for idealism, for prosperity and possibility for all of us. That is the power and value of education, of the pieces of paper that we are celebrating today, is what we do with them. How we walk that talk of our values and the change and the leadership and the hope and the love that we can breathe and lead and create. Because every one of us in this room is profoundly powerful. All it takes is caring. And all it takes is dreaming and believing and being custodians of hope and architects of justice and peace by coming together as one ecosystem of hope and community and love and creating the great nation that we deserve to be. So may you join me in that pledge today. And again, I thank La Trobe University. I thank the Chancellor and Vice-Chancellor. I thank the La Trobe Law School. I thank all the wonderful graduates here today. I thank all the wonderful parents. I thank my mum, my late father, and my beautiful sister who couldn't be here today, Nola. And I thank all of you. Let us keep hoping and dreaming and loving and fighting for a better and more just world for everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much to Kon for that inspiring address, and I hereby admit Kon Karapanagiotidis OAM to the degree of Doctor of Laws, honoris causa. Congratulations.